I think for some sellers, not all, some sellers, we might be focusing in on the wrong thing. And in this video, I'm going to tell you about what I'm talking about. So without any further ado, let's go. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is John from Flippin Ain't Easy. And as I mentioned on the other side, I really think that sometimes as resellers on eBay, we sometimes tend to think of the wrong things as it pertains to how we're doing as resellers. And what I mean by that is I think sometimes we get caught up into how many listings that we've listed. And let's face it, there's a number of channels out there that sort of tell you, hey, if you're not listing 30, 40, 50, 100 items, then you're going to fail. And I think I take an exception to that. You know, I think sometimes when you're watching, you could get sort of caught up into trying to be to keep up with the Joneses and to do what they do, and because you see that they're successful, right? There's a lot of intangibles that's involved in that success that maybe is not really highlighted. But at the end of the day, hey, they're listing 50, 60, 100, 200 items in a day, and you're over here struggling with maybe 5 or 10. And that really, while you're looking for information to help you succeed as a seller, that certainly doesn't make you feel very motivated and very successful. But let me just kind of share with you the reason why I thought about this is I picked up this particular lot, and it's a customer returns lot, and I paid $272, I think it was, after everything out the door. And I did my research. It was a manifested pallet, and I knew what I was getting into. I think my cost of goods on this thing is like 30 to 40 bucks per item. If you consider that 2 of these items are $900 MSRP, now of course I'm not going to get that much on eBay for it, but I did some research, and I knew exactly what I was getting into, and I knew that this is an easy double up if it just came in as like beat up used items. But this particular seller that I deal with, most of the items come back from businesses, and there's usually not a problem with it. They open it up, sometimes they don't even open it, and they send it back. Maybe they don't need it, maybe they it wasn't what they needed for their business, or whatever it is. So I took a shot at this pallet. I listed this Zebra thermal printer today, and it's a $900 printer. It's pretty heavy duty. It's pretty sweet. But I listed it, and I checked out the comps. I priced it a little bit lower than the comps, plus the cost of shipping. And wouldn't you know it, a couple hours after listing it, it sold. And that paid for, as you can see, it paid for well above and beyond what I paid for the lot, and then some. I still have another 8 items. I listed a couple more of those items out of the lot today. But, you know, I listed about 12 items today. When you're selling electronics, it's not at all like selling clothing. You know, you can have a pile of shirts, and you have a 12 photo setup, and you can do it, because I do it with the patches, right? On my other account, I can fly with those patches when I'm taking photos. So you can really get into a zone, especially if you don't have to test. You just inspect, make sure it's in good condition, make sure there's no rips, tears, stains, that type of thing, and you can just, boom, make a system and just churn those things out. And like with clothing, you're probably making anywhere between $5 and $10, maybe $20, depending on, you know, how high end the items that you're selling. But it becomes definitely a numbers game. So for instance, I'm into this particular thermal printer for 40 bucks, flip it for 10x, right? After eBay takes their cut, and after, you know, I ship it out. So that's, for me, it took me 20 minutes to list that. I had to take photos. I had to test it. Now, it didn't come with a roll of any kind of thermal paper, but it has a digital display. It powered up just fine. It had the internal factory stickers, like on the inside where you have to remove the stickers before you put the tape roll in. So I knew it was never used before, so I just wanted to make sure it powered up, because sometimes these units arrive DOA due to shipping damage or that type of thing, and it's shipped back because there's a problem with it. I'm highly confident that this thing is going to work once they have the roll of thermal tape put in and put it to use. But I still test it out, make sure it powers up, take 12 photos, do my zoom photos. I zoom on specific features, maybe where things get plugged in, I zoom in on maybe the digital display itself to show the buyer that it works, take photos of the packaging, that type of thing. So this item is in great condition. It even had the plastic film on the outside of the LCD screen and the little window that's on the side of the unit. So I was very confident in this item and very happy to get the sale that I did. But it just got me to thinking, the last few months I've been really trying to focus on getting more items in my store, lowering my threshold as to the minimum amount that I'm willing to accept for an item. And the idea was to maybe generate more sales, maybe drive up the sale through rate in my store, and that's kind of what's happened. But I find that I'm dealing with a lot more smaller sales. I think that some of us are too focused on the number of items that we're listing per day and not as focused on how much value we're putting into our store. So, if you're focused on trying to get 1,000 items into your store, how much value are you trying to actually build your store up to? Like, for instance, I'll show you, I have it's about $17,000 in value in my store currently with a little under 700 items. And it's about $22.50 some cents per item, per listed item. That's, in a lot of cases, that's the price prior to shipping. So you add shipping on top of that. I do have some items that are free shipping, but it used to be higher than that. And it's because I've added a lot of lower priced items in the idea of adding more volume, right? And sometimes we get caught up in saying, you know what, I've been listing 10 items a day, I need to try to list 15. But wouldn't you instead be better off looking at how much value you're putting into your store? And what I mean by value is, if I list, say, $1,000 worth of merchandise, and that's not retail, that's how much you're listing the item for, okay? So if you list $1,000, let's say, in a day, and that you're listing, say, maybe 10 to 15 items to achieve that $1,000, on the flip side, if you're listing 40 or 50 items in a day to get that same amount, it seems to me that listing the 50 items, even though those listings are faster to achieve, it seems to me that it's going to be a little more work and a little more hassle, more customers to deal with, more emails to answer, of course, a larger store to maintain, and you're, at the end of the day, those two sellers, in theory, are making the same amount of money based on the value, not necessarily the volume of items in the store. And let's just assume that we're dealing with, smaller items for the one seller and larger items for the other seller, right, at a higher price point with basically the same demand in each category, right? So both items sell fairly well, and you're dealing with two different types of sellers. One that has dealt with a little less effort, more value, hunting for more higher value ticket items. Now, one can argue if you add a lot of high value items in your store, you're just asking for trouble, you're asking for fraud, you're asking for higher returns. I don't think that's true. In my opinion, there's bad buyers out there, but they represent less than 5% of buyers out there on eBay. And they're going to happen. Returns are going to happen regardless of the price point. So what I'm saying doesn't really apply to all sellers. If you, again, are tearing it up, making a lot of sales, paying your bills, having extra money on hand, able to scale your store with the business model that you're using where you're dealing with high volume, low margins, by all means, keep doing what you're doing. Now I only decided to make this video because if you're like me, you're constantly trying to figure out ways to get better, right? And, for a while there, I was thinking, you know what, just keep churning, put these $10, $15 items up. Before that, I was saying, you know what, nothing below 20. I think I'm going to try to gravitate back to the model that I was using, because honestly, I'll get the same number of sales, sometimes a little bit more, and I'm finding that I'm not making as much. So I'm putting in more time shipping. I'm putting in more time, of course, listing, just pumping up items that are $10 to $15. And I'll do that for the stuff that I still have here. But as far as stuff that I'm sourcing, I'm going to start trying to maximize my efforts into more dollars per return on each item than smaller margins. And that's what I'm going to do. Maybe it's an idea that you can look into and explore, and maybe start looking at your store as far as dollar value per day that you're listing rather than how many items you're listing, and stop trying to be like other people to feel validated that you've done a good job for the day. I listed 12 items. I made $600 today. It's not going to always be that way, but I tell you what, I feel pretty good about my efforts today. I took the extra time that I had, do some cross listing, and we talked about that on a number of videos before this with Prime Lister. You can check it out yourself. If you want to get your items in front of more eyes, check it out. You get 14 days for free, and your first month is 30% off or something like that. Not even needing a credit card to get started. So give that a chance, check it out. But that's what I'm doing. I'm looking at ways to maximize my time and to maximize the dollar value and not necessarily the item count in my store. So guys, what do you think? I want your thoughts down below. Let me know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm onto something here. But I always like to present some of the things that I'm thinking, some of the things that open my eyes to you guys, in hopes that maybe a few of you who may have opportunities to source higher value items might consider doing that instead of continually doing what you're doing and you're not really finding the results you're hoping for. So guys, if you like the content, hit that like button. Of course, subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you can catch me live when I decide to do that at the last minute. But you know, what you choose to source is very important. The dollar value, your return value, the value of items that you put into your store, these are all just examples of how Flippin' ain't easy. And I want you guys to have a great rest of your week, and I will talk to you very soon.